I've worked there for about 14 years. I'm the engineer that they let tag along here. And so you can kind of tell it looks like I haven't seen the sun in 6 months. And to make things worse, I'm from the Seattle area, so I probably haven't seen the sun in 6 months. But yeah, worked for HPE for 14 years. Started off at HPE in the storage ecosystem test organization. And what we did there was we tested all the different types of HBAs, switches, really anything you could attach to a storage array, we tested. So very interesting work. We did everything from low-level protocol analysis to testing higher-level, clustering software with our storage products and partner products as well. So recently, I've been working. I'll progress the slides here in a program called HPE Complete, and I'll make this kind of quick. I'm the lead engineer within HPE Complete, and what it is it's a resale program for best-in-class third-party products. So I'm sure you're all very familiar with patching together a solution made up of various vendors' products, right? And having to work with all the different vendors can sometimes be very difficult. So in this program, what we do is we bring in third-party products, we create these end-to-end solutions, we test them in-house, we support them, and at the end of the day, they can all be purchased on a single purchase order, right? So really simplifying the process, making it so that you have one vendor to work with, you don't have to patch together these solutions, and you have the added assurance that it's actually been set up and tested, right? Kind of noble concept. So we can talk about engineering a little bit, since that's kind of my area of expertise and what I think brings real value to this program. When we work with a company like Zurdo, we bring them in, we work with my counterparts, engineering within Zurdo. We put together joint test plans where we actually look at the dependencies that the product has on the HPE products, and we want to make sure that we test all those things from an HPE perspective as well as a Zurdo perspective, right? Make sure that we iron out any interoperability issues, any performance. Some of the testing and support that we've done over the years is with our HPE ProLiant servers, M-series switches, our various storage products. I come from the storage networking organization, so you'll see me kind of tilt things a little towards storage throughout the presentation. And another added benefit in this is that we also provide a lot of guidance and training. And we look for areas where we can integrate our products with Zurdo so that we're not just having these two products coexisting together, but that they can actually work together, gain insights from each other. So we'll kind of walk through this as we go, and we'll explain some of those opportunities. Okay, so what is elastic infrastructure, clouds, and disaster recovery? Again, really it's all about flexibility, right? Being able to move your workloads, being able to replicate when you want to, where you want to, how you want to, and being able to do it on any platform, any infrastructure. So elastic infrastructure, right? Again, being able to, on premises, being able to migrate, being able to replicate, regardless of the infrastructure you're on. We'll talk through how this is tested and supported within HPE. We'll touch on some of the integration we're doing, both that we currently have and that we're looking forward. Some of the top secret stuff we're working on, we'll kind of key you in on some of that. Elastic clouds. So we want to talk about not only moving your data and workloads to the public cloud. That's such a 2017 concept. We want to be able to move workloads to the cloud, data to the cloud, but also between clouds, and be able to move it back on premise as well as your needs arise. Elastic disaster recovery. So this If you haven't heard of long-term retention, you will in this conference. It's one of the main features in Zerto 7, and we'll discuss how HPE, Zurdo, and one of our other HPE Complete partners have been working together to provide a very good solution in this area. All right, so elastic infrastructure. Again, kind of having that flexibility, being able to replicate across hypervisors, across infrastructure. Now, hopefully, you'd think I'd stand up here and say, well, hopefully all your infrastructure is HPE, but we know that's not the case always, right? So you need a replication solution that can replicate regardless of what vendor's product you're on, some of our competitors, to HPE, and vice versa. So all of this has been tested in-house. Zerto's a great solution for this, hypervisor-based, like we said, which makes it fairly hardware agnostic. You can also do your heterogeneous compute network storage, so you can have your nimble storage or your HPE 3-par storage and migrate between those two, replicate from one to the other. So again, kind of on the testing and the engineering, I kind of beat this one up a little bit because it's what I do, but some of the solutions, the examples we have up there, we have in-house, and I've personally run these test cases where we test Zerto on our HPE ProLiants with HPE switches, our M-series switches, for example, from 3-par storage to nimble storage and back again. And as an output of this, we have guidance and reference architectures where we go through not only how to set up the configuration and optimize it, but also go through use cases like failover, both live and test. And we go through the backup and how to do those things. So we have that for our 3-par and nimble configurations up there. We also have one specific to our MSA product line, right? More of the small to medium business type market. And I could actually draw arrows between those two because we use Zerto in-house to replicate between all those different products, right? From our ProLiant and 3-par configurations to our MSA, and we have these dedicated in our labs, right? So even in our testing, Zerto adds a lot of flexibility for us to move our workloads and our test environments from one set of infrastructure to another. And again, check out those reference architectures if you're interested. We support Zerto and test it often on MSA, 3-par, Nimble, SimpliVity, or hyperconverged platforms. So yeah, check that out. The other part of my job that we discussed a little bit is looking for integration opportunities. So it's great having Zerto and HPE kind of coexist. That's all fun and great. But really, we want to get to the point where our products talk together. It's one solution. We can gain insights from Zerto. They can gain insights from us. And I just kind of wanted to walk through here one product that we have that's a released product and talk through some of the work and some of the things we're doing with Zerto. So today we have a product called Smart Fabric Orchestrator. And what it is a management and orchestration solution for your fabric or your storage network. And it can actually go through and it can map out from end to end your entire topology, from your networking switches to your end devices. It can go and talk to them and say, hey, what firmware versions, what software versions reside on these switches? And it can actually compare the versions to the HPE support databases, right? So validate the environment to make sure that all the stuff you're setting up has been tested, will work, is completely validated, right? Something else that it does on the orchestration side of things is helps you simplify the configuration of your fabrics. So who here loves to or has done zoning in the fiber channel world? Yeah. Who here loves to do that? Yeah, not me, right? some vendors, you actually have to do certifications just to figure out how to configure switches and understand how to do this zoning. So Smart Fabric Orchestrator simplifies all that. There's a concept of having a template, a port template, a switch template. And using these templates, you can add switches very easily and grow your environment as needed or shrink it. So the work we're doing with Zurdo is all around gaining that insight from Zurdo. Now that we know what's in your fabric, we have a lot of intelligence about what your switches are doing, what firmware they're running, what they're connected to. We can map all that out. We want to understand what workloads are actually utilizing your network, right? What's running on top of your network? And so we can do that, or we're working to do that using Zurdo's RESTful APIs, right? Where we can go out and we can request information from Zurdo, like, hey, what virtual machines are you protecting? We want information about your sites. What versions are you running, right? And then we can check that to make sure that it's all supported, everything's good. We can also gather information about alerts, events, tasks that are ongoing, and we can report those up to Smart Fabric Orchestrator, right? So again, not just understanding what your hardware is doing, which I think HPE by now is good at, but understanding what the application running on top of your fabric is doing as well. And so some of the top secret stuff, where we're going with all of this, in our R&D labs, is that we want to be able to do some of the monitoring and self-healing the Smart Fabric Orchestrator does, right? So not just being able to report what Zurdo's doing and what the configuration looks like, but actually be able to, let's say, see that one of your sites has a degraded switch, you have some kind of bottleneck issue, or you're seeing protocol errors on the port level, being able to tell Zurdo, hey, let's fail over those resources to your recovery site. We can either alert you to have you do that, or potentially do it automatically, right? To add that flexibility and that elasticity to your fabric. So that's kind of where we're going with all of this. First, gathering the information, and then the next step in the future will be actually self-healing and being able to take action with Zurdo on HPE fabrics. Another integration opportunity we're doing with Zurdo, I worked for HPE for a long time, and prior HP, very big company. We got smaller recently, but still very big. And the one good thing about HPE is that we have a tool or utility for everything, every scenario. The bad thing is that's a whole lot of tools, and it's hard to really figure out, where do I apply these tools? Can I even find them, right? Do they work with Zurdo? Those are some of the problems that we saw customers have initially. So we are trying to fix that. And we're bringing all these tools and utilities and plugins together into something called an integration pack. And this integration pack and all the tools within it are fully tested with Zurdo. We make sure that they work, first of all. We give you the convenience that it's a one-stop shop for all the tools and utilities that you may want to use with Zurdo. And on the horizon, we have more to come, right? We've got an add-on that's specific to Zurdo, right? We've got a little script that helps our SimpliVity array and enable some of the support with SimpliVity. And we also have what we're calling the integration pack for Linux, which will be the same concept, but on Linux virtual machines and Linux environments. So that right there should help customers out quite a bit. Because I work for HPE, and I commonly had problems finding things, right? I knew they were out there, but having them all in one spot really helps. So yeah, those are a couple of the integration efforts we're working on, right? Gaining insights about Zurdo, and feeding that to our HPE software products, but then also helping you configure and apply some of the tools that already exist. Apply those to your environments. All right, so that was all on-prem, right? HPE's been doing on-prem for a long time. Now let's kind of elevate things and go a little bit into the clouds. So, like I said, the old concept of just moving your data to the cloud and it's going to reside there forever, that's not a discussion we're having at least anymore, right? We want to talk about, hey, how do we provide you the flexibility to move between clouds, right? Whether that's your on-prem private cloud to the public cloud or between Microsoft Azure and AWS, right? You may not just want to move your storage to one place and have it locked in forever. Zurdo actually is a beautiful product for this, right? You can replicate to the public cloud, whether that's Microsoft Azure or AWS. And the nice thing about Zurdo is that you're replicating and it creates that replica up in that object storage. But you don't pay for the compute until you actually need it, right? Until there's actually a failover. So all you're really paying for is the capacity to store that replica in the cloud. And the virtual machine gets spun up only if you need it. This was basically what our session was all last year, right? Again, we have a reference architecture out there explaining how you can move your resources between on-prem sites using HPE and Zurdo. You can also replicate to the cloud, any cloud of your choice. And that's all been tested in-house. And so I'd recommend going and checking out that session. It's on YouTube. And check that one out. So what I wanted to do was switch it up a little bit and talk about a product that we have that really complements this move to cloud mobility, right? So Zurdo's a great tool, right? You can use any cloud of your choice. We have a product called HPE Cloud Volumes. And if we talk literally here, what HPE Cloud Volumes is you can think of data centers that are managed by HPE, chock full of nimble storage and technology. And these data centers are in close proximity to those managed by Microsoft Azure and Amazon, right? So with that close proximity, we get low latency, we get high performance, we have dedicated connections between us and Azure and AWS. And then you also get the benefit of the nimble technology. So a lot of these cloud providers, they're great at providing cloud services, but when it comes to storage, they don't have all the features that you might want. So when you talk about these data centers that are in close proximity to AWS and Microsoft, if you squint really hard, you can kind of see the different regions we have. So I think we have US West, US East, a couple in Europe, and we're expanding this as we go. So let's talk a little bit about how this works. So just as Zurdo can replicate data to a public cloud, with an on-prem nimble storage array, you can also replicate to the public cloud. But since you're replicating to an HPE managed data center, you don't have those costly egress and ingress charges that you might have with Amazon or Microsoft, right? They like to lock you in and say, you're keeping your data with us, or you're going to pay, right? And so what we do is you can create an HPE Cloud Volume by itself, and you can map that via the iSCSI protocol to either cloud provider. So you can map it via iSCSI volume to compute in AWS, or you can map an iSCSI volume to compute in Azure. And you can actually do it at the same time, right? We enable things like clustering in the cloud. And so yeah, but the real power of this, like I said, is being able to pair that with your on-prem nimble storage, being able to replicate to the cloud, move your volumes and your data and your workloads to the public cloud, and be able to repatriate or move the data back to your on-prem storage without all those costly charges. So kind of a simple use case here might be you have a volume that you're replicating to HPE cloud volumes. You replicate that to the cloud. You spin up a VM in AWS, map that iSCSI volume to your compute, do some analytics, some data mining, something like that. It's all without having any of those egress or ingress charges, right? You're only paying for the capacity. You can take as many snapshots as you would like because, again, we're a storage company and we do snapshots and copies and cloning without taking up a bunch of additional capacity. So you can do all that without all these additional charges. You would only be charged if you wrote to that copy and obviously took up more capacity, then you might be paying a little bit extra. But if you did that, you would be able to repatriate that data back to your on-prem storage very easily. So again, really, not just are you moving to the cloud, but you're moving between clouds. You're able to share this storage, whether your compute's in AWS or in Azure, and you're able to move it back on-prem as you need to, right? We don't lock you in like the public cloud providers do. And what about management and analytics? So these things also need to follow your data, right? You can't just move your data and your workloads to the cloud and just say bye-bye, right? You need to have a solution like Zurdo. Zurdo Analytics, whether you're replicating to the cloud or on-prem, you have a single dashboard that gives you your analytics data. They'll give you information on RPOs, RTOs, capacity, network bandwidth, all of this information behind a single pane of glass, whether you're replicating to the cloud or on-prem. So that's very powerful. And complementary, in HPE, we have HPE InfoSight, which I don't know if anybody's heard, but it's a cloud-based AI platform. Hopefully you've heard of it. Basically, again, right, whether your data is in the cloud, on-prem, the power of InfoSight and its analytics is that not only is InfoSight looking at the millions of sensors within your HPE stack, you're also taking advantage of the HPE global install base. So InfoSight will actually recognize a problem, if there is a problem, on the other side of the world. It'll analyze what events led to that issue and then make sure that nobody hits that issue anywhere else, right? So if you're displaying the same attributes or have these events that are occurring that might lead to an issue, InfoSight will either correct that issue automatically or contact you to fix the issue, right? And so that's where we're predicting issues and making sure that they don't happen in your environments. All right. So we talked about elastic infrastructure, right? The flexibility that we have on-prem using Zurdo with HPE, some of the integration with our HPE products, elastic clouds, moving your workloads and your data across multiple clouds. Now let's talk about disaster recovery. So disaster recovery is, I'm assuming, going to be a big topic in this conference, right? One of the big features in Zerto 7 is the long-term retention. And this is something we've really been focusing on in the last few months, probably about 6 months within HPE, is working with Zurdo, again, engineer-to-engineer collaboration. And we've been testing this on our products. And so yeah, the way long-term retention works is that you're replicating data to a recovery site or your virtual machines to a recovery site. The cool thing about Zurdo is that The production data is unimpacted. What they do is back up that replica, right? So it's your recovery site that is used for the backup. Your production data is unimpacted. And so an obvious target for this, a repository for HPE, is the HPE Store Once. This is a purpose-built backup appliance built by HPE. I think you'll hear more about it in this conference. It's one of the top products that Zurdo's been testing. What we wanted to do, again, kind of switch it up a little bit, is talk about one of our partner products. So we have a representative from Cetera here, right, to kind of help us through, and if you guys have any questions, but we want to talk about their Cetera Edge Filer product. So in this scenario, again, I'm trying not to fall off the stage here. In this scenario, Cetera is the repository, and it's SMB file share in this case. And again, Zurdo is replicating to your recovery site, taking a backup of that replica data and storing it on the SMB share, right, the Cetera Edge Filer. Okay, so what's the big deal, right? Well, the big deal is some of Cetera's native capabilities are that they can keep warm data on-prem and send your colder data or files, right? Those are their least accessed to the public cloud, right? So this is probably something you're not going to hear anywhere else. We've been testing this in partnership with Zurdo, Cetera, HPE. We've all been coming together testing this particular solution. And so Cetera, like I said, great product for all-in-one storage, backup, and file collaboration, and being used as our repository here. So the way Cetera works is that they will cache your files on-prem to a certain point until that cache fills up, right, to a certain extent. And at that point, they'll start looking at your cold data and what they call evict your cold data from your on-prem storage, right? So it will only reside in the cloud in your object storage. Whether that object storage is in AWS or Azure, that's up to you. But the power of this is that you can have kind of the best of both worlds, right? You can have your short-term backups and short-term data reside on-prem, where you get the performance, the fantastic performance, low latencies, short RPOs, short RTOs that you're used to on-prem. And for those things that you're keeping for a rainy day, right, the cold data, maybe it's for compliance reasons or archiving. Those things don't need to take up your local on-prem storage. You can have those stored and take advantage of the economies of scale that Azure and AWS provide. Okay, so really the best of both worlds. Yes?
Question. So can that have multiple targets? For example, can it offload data to Azure as well as AWS?
So Shai is our representative here. Shai, you want to answer that one?
From the same device, you can go to multiple targets. Yes, there are ways.
Yep. Sure.
So can you answer me on your cold storage? Is it possible to have it as read-only or as a warm copy?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to add that the entire data set is available locally as some of the data is actually sitting locally, some of the data is actually just being stuck. So it just shows a link to the cloud. So for an admin that goes through data sets and tries to recover something, he will see the entire, can browse the entire backup environment. And then just choose what he wants to take down.
Yeah, and just to kind of recap those questions. So they were asking, for one, can Cetera have different targets? Can you send some of your data to AWS and Azure? And the answer was yes, it is definitely possible. Also that the Zerto edge filer, all of the files look like they're local, right? Whether it's a file that's local or a stub that points to your file in the cloud, to the application, to Zurdo or anybody else, it looks like local files, right? So all the magic kind of occurs behind the scenes, unbeknownst to the application. Yeah, more questions?
So, I understand the mobile site is cloud agnostic, but does it work similar to Store Simple? Does yours store Simple or the storage gateway in AWS, which has the same capability, storage locally and caching over?
Okay, so the question is, does it work similar to, I think you said Store Simple, Microsoft Store Simple, and AWS's Edge Gateway? I believe the answer is yes, right?
AWS storage gateway is a little bit different than what Store Simple, but yes, for that use case, it works the same. We do have more capabilities of like permissions and Windows Active integrations and a lot of more features for the end users to access data, but for a backup environment and for a disaster recovery environment, in that use case, it works more or less in the same aspect. The only thing is that we don't touch, we don't use only Azure or only AWS. Right, you're agnostic, right?
Yep. Zerto Edge Filer is agnostic. Now, we have lots of opportunity with Shai here at the end. I'll get through. I think I only have like 2 more slides, and then we can kind of open it up for questions and probably get a microphone out or something. Okay, so like I said, kind of nearing the end of this journey through elasticity and flexibility and being able to move things between clouds and replicate to different clouds. This is kind of my grand build-out slide, and so where we kind of recap everything. So hopefully my animations don't go crazy here. But at the beginning, we talked about on-prem and the work we do with Zurdo, right? I mean, just like you see with Shai here in Zerto, we work with engineers at Zurdo to really understand their product, test it in-house, make sure there are no gaps in our testing. We provide guidance through white papers and reference architectures. We also look for opportunities for integration, like with our Smart Fabric Orchestrator product, right? Giving insights that Zurdo has to our HPE products so that we can provide it in one cohesive solution. Elastic clouds. So again, we have a reference architecture out there. We've tested all. Okay, great. HPE Cloud Volumes was really kind of the one solution that we thought could complement you and help you in this journey to multi-cloud, moving your workloads to the cloud. And then HPE InfoSight and Zerto Analytics, how those 2 products can complement each other, regardless of where your data is, where you're replicating to or from. And then finally, sounds like there's a lot of interest in our disaster recovery solution, and that is using Zerto's long-term retention, right? And being able to cache some of those backups and those things where you want short RPOs and RTOs, being able to cache those on-prem while sending some of your longer-term backups and data to the public cloud. Right? Take advantage of both worlds and take advantage of the economies of scale that the Azure and AWS provide. And that's with the Zerto Edge Filer. Now the kicker here is that this entire solution, right, like we said with the HPE Complete program, it's all been tested from beginning to end. Zurdo replication, on-prem, in the cloud, long-term data retention, to the Zerto Edge Filer, to the cloud. This has all been tested, supported by HPE, and available on one purchase order, right? You have one person to buy it from, one person to support it, and from beginning to end. That is pretty much it. It sounded like we had quite a few questions.
and we're using VRA for the portal. We're using third-party API integration tools to code a lot of additional access into different tools so that it's all through one portal, because what we find is customers don't want to have to log into 15 different windows to be able to perform activities on their cloud. I mean, I guess the question is A, is it possible to do the API integration to be able to pull in some of these features and actually execute them from the VRA portal versus having to go into the individual tools themselves?
Yes, absolutely. And kind of what we're trying to do with some of our API integration, I just talked about Smart Fabric Orchestrator. What we're actually doing is creating a more generic plugin framework. And this plugin framework will be a generic HPE API, basically. It'll have a plugin for Zurdo, for instance, for Cetera, other platforms. So that provides one single API that potentially you can interact with. And the reason we're doing this is because HPE has several different software products, right? Smart Fabric Orchestrator is not the only one, but we have InfoSight, we have OneView, and others. We want to be able to provide that information, that API, the analytics and everything we can gather from Zurdo. We want to provide those to all the HPE software products and potentially our customers, right, with their own custom apps.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? Multi-tenant cloud.
Yep.
Multi-tenant cloud on a single vCenter, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have each of your customers set up as, say, a data center, a virtual data center. Now you have to worry about, is customer A going to log in and see customer A being sick? And that's always a big challenge when we go and try to develop for these additional features or build additional features onto our private cloud.
Yep, absolutely. Understood, and I'd love to have more of a conversation with you because, we're trying to get to this place where we have a single pane of glass, right? Hopefully we'll get there, but we're really on that journey. We're simplifying, like I said, trying to create one API that you can interact with, for instance, for all of our products and even our partner products. But yeah, we have a booth right out here. We can definitely chat. Yes.
Okay, another question. How far up in your, I'll call it your orchestration, that one pane of glass, are you taking this? Because I hear a lot at the asset level. Are you taking it up to the application level and to the service level, or are you stopping at the asset level?
Well, we have plans right now is at the asset level, right, on the roadmaps, et cetera. So we want to be able, again, kind of creating a single environment with our partner products that you can interact with this single pane of glass. But you're absolutely right. The next step is, okay, what applications? Microsoft SQL Server, what's actually generating that load?
And are you thinking about integrating it, for example, with the existing kind of mapping tools like ServiceNow has, where your CMDB can actually feed you that mapping information so that you can report out on the health of the application or the service? Because that's one of the biggest problems we're seeing when we have a potential disaster recovery event is you can tell me what server it is, but you can't tell me what's on that server, and you can't tell me what application's in trouble. I have to listen on the customer side to what the symptoms are coming back to us from the customer side. So we're really looking at that one pane of glass as really from a disaster potential is how are we resuming the services so that the customer can move on with their business rather than, oh, that ProLiant server's back up now. What does that mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so that's great feedback. And this is kind of where we're having a bit of a paradigm shift within HPEs where we're looking at not just the speeds and feeds of the hardware, right? That's, okay, we can do that. But like you said, what's actually running on the environment, what workloads, and being able to correlate all these different data points, right? Okay, Zurdo's reporting an alert here. We have a switch that may be degraded. What intelligence and what actions can we take to resolve these things? And you're absolutely right. The next step is kind of that application layer. So we'll take that feedback, and but yeah, that brings another layer of partnering and complexity, definitely. All right, so I'll just introduce a few people here. So we got Shai Zur from Cetera, right there that you guys heard from. He'll be hanging out with us at the HPE booth. So if you have any questions about their product, it does a lot more than I talked about there, so you guys can have those conversations. Charlie Neufeld, who manages the Zurdo and HPE relationship. So if you want to talk about HPE Complete and how to purchase these solutions and what they are, he's definitely the guy for that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Any other questions? Or if there are, we'll be out in the hall. Feel free to come by and have a chat. All right, thank you very much.